All right, guys. So I am going to come at y'all with part one, and I'm just going to get right into it. I'm not going to beat around the bush with this. Yesterday, um, you guys know, well, let's start off with this. You guys know that I have had problems in social media with possessed people, right? People that are possessed by what I feel and what I've realized is coming from several different shadow realms. Okay. Hey, Trinity. Um, they're coming from shadow realms, various ones. The main ones that I have discovered would be the fairy shadow realm, but then also that's connected to religion, and then also the demiurge, which is also connected to religion. So those people, unfortunately, especially the ones that prove to be very dangerous, in my opinion, those people are just being used. Which is why they're being used. They want to be respected and heard, but they can't be respected and heard when you are literally a empty seater for that, and that's what you do. That's pretty much what you do. You're being used for that purpose. So last night I was not able to really speak about this, but I looked at and I ran into some videos about Tyra Spalding. If you guys have never heard about her, she is a victim of gang stalking that was actually, and I have not read this for myself to uncover what it is, okay? What it is exactly. Um, I'm just going to get into that real quick. I'm going to hit that up about Tyra Spalding. It is either her ex, but I think that the main proponent of that was possibly her father being a Freemason. Now, does this mean that her father did this to her? Not necessarily, okay? I think that the main aspect when it comes to being gang stalked and when you're being contacted by these negative entities, it can be very confusing. That's what it's all about. It's about confusion. So most people have no idea. And so Tyra Spalding actually ended up, it is suspected. And listen, I am always, always, always very suspectful. It's suspect. Okay. When a victim of gang stalking unalives themselves, that to me is always weird, especially when it's a hanging. You can easily pass murder off as someone unaliving themselves easily. Those people can do that easily. You can actually hang somebody and make it look like they did it to themselves. But I haven't looked into it, okay? And so, and I probably won't, to be honest with you, because with us being, just a week or so before uh Old Hallows Eve, I may not have time to do that because there's so much other stuff right now that is at play. Okay, so I think that gang stalking is probably one of the biggest, most perplexing things. It is a lot of energy, a lot of negative energy that is being put in to place when you're dealing with gang stalking. Again, the gang stalkers, they are puppets. Okay. It may be a few of them that possibly could be sort of spiritually advanced to understand it, But I think even those people are delusional, because what they don't realize is that the energy behind that whole thing has no loyalty for them either. Okay. So, that's what's so sad about that, is that people that think that the ones that are, they feel like they're the master of this illusion that is being created to, cause hurt and pain and chaos in your life and in the lives of your loved ones. It's not something that you should go along with but I look at it from a different perspective. Okay. So what I can tell you is that when it comes to her and many others, Tyra Spalding, when it comes to them, what ends up happening is that you get stuck in the in between, which is the liminal spaces that we're going to be talking about. And I'm going to do a series on this series of videos as well as live streams about it. And basically, what a liminal space is that it's a space in the mind, but it's also a physical space that you can be stuck in, right? But it is connected to anything that's connected to you psychologically or mentally is connected astrally, and it's etherically, it's esoterically, right? So a liminal space would what it is it's basically, and it's very similar to the astral, but the astral I think is separate. I think a liminal space is a space that is created of your own doing, but that particular space is created from the experiences that you're having, which could be made up of, it's a space that can be both positive, but also it can possess negative qualities to it, right? So a liminal space is basically like a hallway, okay? And it is from point A to point B, right? So it's like you're in this space, right? And it can either be some movie examples. The Shining. If you guys remember, they kept showing this hallway, and there was this set of twins that was in that hallway. Okay. Or if you want a even better example, if you guys remember in that movie called Poltergeist, the original one, when the mother was running down the hallway, and the hallway, she was trying to get to the door to save her daughter, to save Carol Ann, and the hallway just got longer and longer for a few minutes. That was an example of a liminal space. So this is like basically the in between, and the in between can be, it's all connected to the physical earth reality and um earthly pleasures and desires, okay? So it's like this space that you're in, which is the journey between what it is that you desire. So I feel like it's connected to our desires, and not just our desires, it's our needs. Okay. There are certain things in this world that are needed for survival. Okay. In this world, you have to have money to even be able to buy food. You have to have, so, like, for example, money is going to buy food. Food is essential for your survival. Um, a home is essential for your survival. Okay. And then other things are for convenience or pleasure. So basically what and I believe that your enemies, I believe that they do have an understanding of these liminal spaces, and I believe that they work to keep you in that liminal space. In fact, they can even create it for you, which is this obstacle course that you have to get through to get what you want. Now, do they have the right to create that for you? I don't believe that. You know what I mean? I believe that there are some people in this world that they are controlling. They believe that they know what is best. They believe that their way is the only way. And then that's how you end up with that, right? So, for example, I was telling you guys about this reader, and I'm gonna talk about this real quick, and I'm not gonna confront this person. I'm not gonna get into a beef with this person because Goddess knows that I do not need to be in no beefs with nobody else that is delusional. Okay. And I think that people have to be careful out here getting in our feelings about certain things, right? Because this person came back with another video about D'Angelo saying that it was really, really, really disrespectful. It was terrible. I was like, oh my God, what in the world? Basically making these accusations against him and saying that she put him in like a spiritual trash can and she's holding him and his soul belongs to her. It was really weird. And so there's a lot of people out there that they literally feel as though they have the right to do this. And I think that when you get to the point where you start to discover liminal spaces, and it's actually something that I actually probably like 3 years ago, I did a meditation video that I uploaded onto YouTube. Now, 3 years ago, my channel was already under attack, right? And so in this video, I pretty much speak about liminal spaces, but I speak about it with this meditation that I do is to where you are on a boat, right? You're on a boat and you're traveling forward, you and your loved ones, and you're kind of like being attacked all around you. There's attacks all around you, but you want to focus on the opening, the light. You want to focus on that light where you can see where you're getting out of the darkness, and you come to that space to where you are out of that. But then, and see, this is as someone that practices the craft, what I have realized is that meditation within itself, to me, it's very helpful. It's a very key component of dealing with the stuff that we're dealing with. However, you have to have some kind of physical, so it doesn't have to be something really, really large, even though sometimes people do have things that are really, really large that do that. But it just has to be some kind of physical something. And it can't always be a candle because candles burn down, even the jar candles. Jar candles burn down, they run out of wax. So it has to be something that is of the earth to where you create that reality for yourself. And then, especially when it comes to your offspring, you create that, but you bind it because it has to be more so of a physical, right? So meditation is great. It's important, but it's only one element of, that would be considered air, but you got to have fire, water, you have to have earth. So that's that earth component of manifestation, right? And so basically when it comes to these liminal spaces, when you are on your journey, your adversaries are somehow either making their way into that liminal space to stand in front of you, or it could be that they could have created that liminal space and they kind of control it. So this is the reason why I started talking to you guys about utopia, creating your own safe space. Utopia is the reality that you create, more so that you have control over, right? Because when we look at the adversarial energy, basically whatever it is that our soul resonance, which is connected to God, that has created your purpose, right? Your purpose, your drive in life, your wants, your desires, your vision. Okay. So you have the right to have that vision for your life. And there's some people that don't want you to have that vision. They just don't want you to have it for it. And that's what's called codependency, because people that are codependent, they feel that whatever it is that you do either affects them, or and they feel as though whatever is happening with you affects other people's perceptions of them. So that's why it's really important for the adversaries to stop you, right? So a lot of you guys are like, oh man, I can't wait for this to happen, or I can't wait for that to happen. And why is things happening so slow? And why is this not happening? And that is because you are in the in between, and which is that liminal space, which is either going to be a very, very long hallway, or which is a transition, right? It's either going to be very, very long, or it's going to be very, very short. I think it depends. I think that it's important to divinate and look at your liminal space, right? So a liminal space can be, let's say that you have a desire, a strong desire for a good marriage, right? Or you have a strong desire for what you want for your family or your offspring or your career or whatever it is, or your health. That liminal space is that transition period of where you're going from one existence or state of being to the other. Now, for me personally, my liminal spaces, they used to be very, very short. Like, and it's because of my own energy and power that I was born with. I was born on a Thursday. I think when I would have an idea about something, and it's still the same way. When I have an ideal about something, it's gonna pop really quickly. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so the adversaries that you have, they want to slow that down. I believe that delays are being created between you and your goals, which has nothing to do with anybody else. Okay, the goals that you have in mind should not have anything to do with anyone else. But for some reason, there are people, and then also we we have an understanding of that. That's something that we've understood for quite some time. There's a lot of people that wonder, why is it that when I began to meditate, why is it that when I began to try to manifest, which manifestation, everybody, like even religious people, like even if you're involved with religion, that religion is going to encourage you to manifest things within yourself. It's not just going to do it for you, it's going to have you take action. So, whether or not that action taken is taking a walk or writing something down, you are putting your goals into perspective some kind of way. So everybody on this earth, everybody that exists has to manifest. Now, when it comes to witchcraft and when it comes to, working with crystals and working with candles and things of that nature, part of the reason why when you get on that particular level, okay, part of the reason why you start having so many issues is because there are things that you need to know about just in general, but then also things that are connected to self. So for example, you may, just okay, let me just tell you this aromatherapy. If they want to say that witchcraft is evil, aromatherapy is evil. Cuz guess what? If there's a stale smell or something in your personal space and you light up a scented candle because you want it to smell better, you want to smell apples or cinnamon instead of smelling some kind of stale smell in your house, you're still opening up doorways because you're bringing in that I think they call it clair, is it clair cognizant, something to do with your sense of smell. You are creating something else based upon that aromatherapy, and you're using fire, you're using air, and you're using your intuition to create it. Okay. Now, it may not be next level like it is when it comes to witchcraft, because what I found is that, when you're practicing witchcraft, I think that it is important to protect yourself within a circle. I think that it's important to understand why you're doing that, but then also understand that you're gonna open up doorways, right? So as I was mentioning earlier, um, shadow realms. Okay. So, one of the things that I can tell you for me personally is that, like, this was more than 10 years ago, right? I was living in Kansas, and this was such the town that I was living in was, I mean, it was just so many different mystical, magical things about Lawrence, Kansas. When I lived there, it just was ridiculous. It was like literally there was a reason why God took me to that place, because it was a part of my experience. It was a space that I had to visit so that I could connect to certain things. And so I was sitting there one day and I was recording a video actually, and a fairy showed up, like literally on camera. So, with that particular fairy, that was a sign of the times when, and it was a real fairy. Now, I think that either the Fae made me take that video down, or either it could have been the adversarial energy that I was dealing with that made me take it down out of jealousy. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't worth it for me to find out at that time. And at the time I was, I had a toddler, I was still breastfeeding, and so I just, it wasn't important for me to do the investigation or to ask my spirit guides. I wasn't even reading cards then. So I just kind of, but basically, and people tried to tell me that it was a piece of dust. That's impossible. I do not keep dust in my house. I don't keep dust in my house. I'm allergic to dust. Literally, if I have dust in my space, too much of it, I can't even really have carpet. I have to vacuum my carpets 3 or 4 times per week because I will literally not be able to breathe. I am allergic. I have an allergy to dust. So it was definitely was not dust. And then also this little fairy creature, it was flying. You could see its wings, and it was flying at an angle, and it was obviously, and it was glowing, and it was on camera. So back then I did not have necessarily the guidance that I needed. I feel that if you ever are contacted by the Fae, I think that it's important for you to go into action to know that there are going to be certain fairy beings that are not very nice. Like Like if you have a connection to the fae, because there's some people that are fairy witches, right? If and it's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with having a connection to the fae, okay? However, the problem is the shadow aspect of that. There is an evil aspect of fairies. It's evil, and I see it as a um I see that as a it's like a shadow realm. It's like, okay, there's the fairy realm, which I've seen it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I can't even really get into what all that I have seen in the fairy realm. Like it's the cleanest water. It's the fountain of youth. I'm not even going to get into it. It is beyond just gorgeous. But then again, there's a shadow realm of the Fae that is filled with complete evil, and it is awful. It is. It's an absolute evil elves, evil trolls, evil fairies. It's horrible. Okay, so if had I had the proper guidance, right? And see, this is one of those things to where, like, when it comes to trying to find answers spiritually in like a spiritual group or a community, it can be very dangerous. That you cannot. Jealousy is evil. Jealousy is tearing people down. Jealousy is literally destroying people. It is deluding people. So that's the reason why it's kind of difficult, especially in the online spiritual community, because there's so many people that when there's any type of spiritual discovery, people are getting jealous, or either people are already jealous. And so what that does is that literally distracts. It distracts and it deflects, and really it's terrible. It is. It's absolutely terrible. And this is for whatever it is that your spiritual or mystical beliefs are, whether or not you're Catholic, Christian, or pagan, or whatever you are. That's just terrible. But what I would say that in my own personal experience is that if you know that you have been contacted by the Fae, there needs to be action that is taken to protect yourself and your loved ones from the shadow Fae, from the evil Fae. Because believe it or not, fairies have a huge impact on our world. They do. Okay. So, had I known back then, this was more than 10 years ago, I would have shut the door on that, or at least got a handle on that. Because, what we know about fairies, we know about fairy tales and stuff from movies. Which again, like I said, fairies, I love fairies, but like I said, there's a shadow realm, that is filled with mischief, trickery, just plain out evil. Like, in fact, this shadow fairy realm that I discovered, it's worse than hell. Like, what we know about in the Bible is hell. Like, it's worse than hell. It's terrible. Okay, it is. The regular fairy realm is good. It's a place of wonder and miracles, and just mystical. It's actually very important, plays a very important role in our earth. But the other one is not good. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it's an example of how evil somehow can intercept, the spiritual journey, especially in social media. And do I feel that those particular people are vetted? Do I feel that they have the right? Nope. But I do feel that those people do end up getting used by the evil to attack people. So, they don't even have the authority. I think that right now what we're dealing with is a lot of people that do want like that ultimate authority over people. For some reason, people are obsessed with that. I don't agree with it. I think that it's stopping people from their own self discovery. But then again, some of those people, listen, if you are possessed, it is your responsibility, typically, unless you decide to come and get some help. That, if you are being possessed by those entities that want control, 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 then that's on you. Like it is your responsibility. It is your responsibility. Like, it is nobody else's problem. Nobody has to feel sorry for you. If you are a person that is being used as a catalyst, as a vessel for evil, people, and especially when it comes to empaths do not have to understand you or have empathy for you, especially these people that are in social media. You feel bad for them in the beginning. You feel sorry for them in the beginning because they have been taken by these particular entities and used. That's not that other person's fault. If an entity is using you to cause war and chaos with another person, that's your issue, right? Like, nobody has to prioritize strangers on the internet. Like, it's not necessarily their responsibility. Like, a lot of us that decided to read or start spiritual businesses, healing businesses, which is our purpose. This is what God decided to do. It is a responsibility that we have to take for our loved ones and our family. But complete strangers on the internet, unless it's one of my clients, unless you are a client, I don't have to take responsibility. You know what I'm saying? I don't. That's your responsibility. So especially if it's somebody that has presented themselves as an adversary, they need to realize, especially if they came out of the blue with, and going back to gang stalkers, you do feel sorry for them. You know why? Because those people are being used. When they are being done, when those entities are done using them, it it just is what it is. Okay. And so going back to people like Tyra Spalding, she was in that liminal space that was not created by her. She was basically in a space that was created, that when she opened that door, that final door, that it was death. It was death was her final door. Okay. So we're going to be talking about liminal spaces because many of you guys, like, for example, um, I've always been a person I have always been a fast healer. Okay. Just always, like, and it has not changed since I've gotten older. Right. So that's another example of a liminal space. You feel under the weather, you may have a cut or something that needs to heal, whether or not it's a physical or psychological or spiritual wound that you may have. And so that liminal space for me has always been very short, right? But what your adversary wants to do is they either want to block off you from opening the door and stepping into that reality, closing the door to that particular liminal space. Because see, that's why I said there's a difference between a liminal space and the astral, because the astral is forever. A liminal space is a temporary space, and temporary can be minutes, hours, but it can also be days, weeks, months, and even sometimes years. Okay. And so liminal spaces are also connected with time. So when you start to deal with those liminal spaces, this is when you, or either someone else, this is pretty much what practitioners do for people, what they're supposed to be doing. Now, I can tell you that it's a lot of people that have pretty much given up and fell off of that. Like, literally, it's kind of like, and it's not to say that all of those people are bad. It's not to say that, but it's a situation to where they have been, that's how you create blocks for people. That's how you create blocks, or delays for people, is the liminal spaces, right? So, and I've even noticed it. I think one of the symptoms of this is, number one, getting deja vu way too much. But when you have to sneeze and it doesn't come out, like experiencing that too much to where there's a body function that you want to do, and you know that it's time to do it, but you can't. It's been stopped, right? So, like, for example, same thing with constipation, right? So it's kind of like, it's something that so your body is going to give you signs that your liminal spaces are being messed with. Now, some of you guys as adversaries know about these liminal spaces. You know what I'm saying? They know about it. In fact, they have studied about it, and they have said, well, and some of them are even readers, they're even psychics, and it's so sad when you know what is the saddest thing to me, what I see a lot. I see brilliant psychics and readers, and what they will do, instead of using their gift for their purpose, or the purpose of helping other people heal, what they end up doing is getting sidetracked by entities, possessed, and then they end up using that gift for evil. And this is happening a lot. I mean, we can see it, and it's insane. Like, for example, that reader that was talking about D'Angelo. I can, you know how I can tell you that she's full of crap. Okay, I'm gonna tell you this. You know why? Because unless that person's family came to that person, right? Or unless she was family somehow to that person, that's the only way that she would have that kind of authority, right? And so that it just it's turning into a freak show at this point. So for me, I just tend to ignore things like that. You know what I'm saying? Because and I think that the celebrity craze has a lot to do with people's jealousy, them feeling as though, well, this person has a lot of money and I'm sitting here struggling. But celebrities typically don't have anything to do with that. Like, okay, I will tell you that there are some things that I've noticed about some celebrities, but again, you have every right. You don't have to be a celebrity to be able to, you don't have to get into a war or a battle with the celebrity. So it's kind of weird to me, and this is one of the reasons why I have wanted to take a step back from social media, because and it's not just celebrities that are singers or actors or dancers. Now we have the politicians doing that. So the politicians are putting on a show. They're putting on a show, but they're putting on a very real show that It's very scary. Like it's just very scary to like have war and bombs and bullets flying everywhere. So it's kind of like, no, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's where the collective consciousness is gonna do something about that. Y'all do know that today is the No Kings Day. I fully support that movement. Yeah, so today is the day of the No Kings movement. Okay. And so this is where the collective consciousness is saying, hey, yeah, no, so that's a very, very beautiful thing. But I also think that that's something that we needed to speak about. Now I'm gonna tell you some around this time of the year. One of the best ways of dealing with liminal spaces is going to be your pumpkins. So your pumpkins are actually going to help open up the doors that have been closed for you, which is going to be really, really good. And so like I said, my what I'm doing within my circle is making sure that we do that. That's why it's really important to not just have the pumpkin. I have two left. The first one that I did, I did do my first pumpkin carving, and it went bad real quick. Like it just was literally like, it was like, wow. But when you actually open up that pumpkin, you are opening up that pumpkin, and that pumpkin is going to be phenomenal in helping and empowering, you to get out of that liminal space that you're stuck in, which is the in between. And it is frustrating. But for some reason, there have been people that have been stuck in their liminal space for at least a year or two or longer. And it is not anything that is harmful. It is not like, well, there are some people, I'm going to be honest with you. There's some people that they can't even rest at night until I'm dead, right? And obviously for me, I don't want that to happen for at least another 50, 60, 70 years. I want to live as long as possible. So if you're a person that is confused, just messed up in the head, we obviously don't want your liminal space to take place. Like that's like, because what you want is harmful to others, right? What you want is harmful to others, but it's not anything harmful about those of you that you may want to get in physical shape. You may want to get your body in physical shape. You may want to grow your hair out. You may want to, meet a nice man or woman. You may want to, get a very good job. You may want to start a business. Those things are not going to hurt other people. And so that brings me to the subject of competition. So that is another concept that was created that we don't actually have to be living in. So, for example, when it comes to a job, that is what can sometimes, it depends on what work is being done, right? How you're looking at it. But the way it is out in the workforce, typically in the job force, is where everybody is competing. The job that you want, at least probably 1,000 or more people want that job. So this is the reason why I think that it is important for people to start businesses, because then you're creating a situation, even though you may have a sole proprietorship, but you're creating a situation that could possibly create jobs, which I think is a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? Because right now, what we're dealing with is the limitations that of which create the competition. So when you're out looking for a job, you really have to be very, very careful. If you look for a job and you go out and you send your resume out there and you are in like a pool of where they are choosing people, you better be ready to deal with people that are setting their intentions right? That there are people that are setting intentions to be chosen first. They want to be chosen first. They want to be chosen immediately. And guess what? That is where the doors are open, or that energy is like a melting pot that can involve negativity. So you have to be protecting yourself while you're looking for a job. You know what I'm saying? You have to protect yourself while you're on the job. So it just it's really a trip. And you know what? It's what I found, and what a lot of people don't want to believe, is that you don't have to necessarily struggle every single day of your life to do that. Like, it doesn't have to be this struggle to where you are, again, being eaten alive. I think that that is where that evil entity can come in, and then that's when energy is being stolen. You know what I'm saying? And so, so the whole struggle thing, it's just like, it makes no sense, which is why you have to get with people that are equally yoked. You have to get, if you're doing anything, the people around you, they have to kind of be on the same page. Otherwise, what you're going to find is a lot of stress, a lot of strain, a lot of, especially if you are somebody that is in your late 30s, 40s, or 50s looking for a job. You're older now. Like, we knew this more than 20 years ago, that the job market began to change. And so to have a job that you're going to stay on for 40 or 50 years and retire literally is unheard of these days, literally. And I don't like that, but it's the reality of it for some reason. I can't give the reason why it's like that, but it just is. Okay. So, if you are in your late 30s, early 40s, 50s, there are many of us that are, there are many people our age that are out there, looking for something. You know what I'm saying? Looking for a job, looking for whatever. And at your age, you have to learn how to manage your stress levels better, because now you're older. So, and it's just a lot. So that's what that is. Liminal spaces is like a place where it's a transition. It's, whether or not you, like, here's a very good example. If you're going from renting to home ownership, right? That's quite a big difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a huge difference. Or if you're going from living with someone or living with your parents and into your own place, so that is like, and I can tell you that for some reason, um your adversaries can make their way into that liminal space, which I believe it's a hallway. You can look at it as like a hallway or a door, with doorways, but it's more so connected with time. It's connected with time, right? And so it's kind of like one of those things to where, they want to cause delay for whatever reason. Maybe they want to get there before you, which is again silly. That to me is silly. Your adversaries, they want to do everything that they want to do and accomplish everything that they want to accomplish before you're able to, which, I believe that, and that's just crazy to me, because why do they look to you instead of looking to themselves and focusing on themselves? Is very weird. And so that's when you get people that, that they get to doing witchcraft and cursing people, binding people, and trying to do things to harm people. And even though they may not be sitting down saying, okay, this is this person's liminal space or whatever, but the act of cursing you, binding you, blocking you, that is where that's going to go. It's going to go to your astral, it's going to go to your physical reality, it's going to go, in the etheric, and it's going to settle and rest in that liminal space as a blocker, you know and it'll be obvious that, because a lot of the times the enemy will tell you, you know what I'm saying, a lot of times your adversary will tell you. I actually had somebody that told me, you're not going to ever have your own place if you don't do what I tell you to do, because of because what I want. And and I'm a person that has literally always had my own place. I've worked in real estate. I've had dealings in real estate. I've actually worked in property management. And but that was that person wanting to be connected. And just to let you guys know, um especially if you're a woman, and this is the reason why it's so important to pay attention to misogyny, sexism, and the patriarchy. That is one of the most evil, but it is a powerful egregore that has been created when it comes to misogyny and patriarchy. If you don't do what this man wants you to do, if you don't conform to what he wants you to do, which is the same thing as with Tyra Spalding, if you don't do what they want you to do, then guess what? He don't want you to exist. He don't want you to make it. He don't want you to survive. And they be serious about that. Some of them be serious about that. So you have to be able to know where to go to say, no, you're not going to control my life in that way. And they really will work at trying to do that. They'll even go and try to pay people to do curses and spiritual work on you and stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's sad, but it's the truth. So gaining control over that, good. Well, first of all, you got to have control over your astral spaces, your etheric, your earthly existence, but you also have to pay attention to those liminal spaces, because the way I picture them, it's like a hallway, and it's a lot of clocks. It's clocks and calendars, and time is involved with those liminal spaces, right? And so yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about during the first discussion of liminal spaces. And I'm not going to do any general readings for that. I'm not, but I think that if it's something that's been delayed, if you're feeling delayed, right? Because a lot of people will just assume, well, it's the economy. I don't buy that. I don't, I don't, I don't necessarily buy that. Just FYI. Don't just buy that and accept that as gospel. Okay. Yeah, no. The economy, no, I don't agree with that. Right. Because, honestly, to me, there's a difference between government money and private citizen money. There is a difference. So we're talking about government money, which does not necessarily rule over private citizen money. It doesn't. I see it as separate. Even though the government wants to know how much money we make, via the IRS, via the state, when you report your taxes, it's still, government the money is separate from community money, private citizens, and what we're doing. Okay. It's not to say that you don't have to report that money, but y'all know what I'm saying. So I just, it's, it, but the delays that you're being caused, it does have something to do with those liminal spaces. Okay. And so it's probably a good idea to look into that. And so that would fall into line of blockage removal. I think that there is this consciousness, though, this fear that is in people, to where if a blockage is removed somehow, that you're removing a person, right? Maybe even a loved one. So this is where you start to get people that will say, well, I don't really want to do that because people look at their children as some kind of, I've never looked at my children as a blockage, never, or obstacle. I've never looked at them as an obstacle. Like, I still don't understand why people do that, but they do. Your children are a blessing, because, and children come with their own blessings with them. I explained that 10 years ago, and it's something that a lot of people accepted, but then again, a lot of people didn't. You know what I'm saying? They didn't get it because they see everything as a burden. They want to see their children as a burden. So, if you have like a baby or whatever, or a small child that, if you get a job, you're going to have to find care for that child. Removing the blockage that's stopping you from getting a job child. You see what I'm saying? Like, is something that I was picking up on in spirit with some of the workings that I was doing for clients. Like, it was really a very lying spirit. It was like it was made out of fear, especially when you're doing blockage removals or either crown of success rituals. There was this consciousness that I kept picking up on, and you could tell that it was put into place for some reason, which was, let's face it, if you're not able to work, you're not going to be able to really support that child. So, but particular entity was saying, don't do anything, be still, because the obstacle is the child, because the child is a burden. I was like, huh? And this was not about me, because no entity would come to me and say that about my children. This was a case that I was working for a client just recently, to where she needed blockages removed. And the adversary was almost trying to hide behind, not almost, was blatantly hiding behind my client's children. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not the one that's doing this. It's the child that's doing it, because the child is the burden. So, when you see women out there, and this is happening a lot, nothing I can do for those women, unless they come to me, and just admit it. But, like, you notice how you'll see women and they won't want their children. They'll say that, I had children, but they're holding me back. And so that evil spirit will tell people that their children are holding them back. That's ridiculous. That it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. But this is the type of stuff that's happening. So then that's what kind of leads to women sort of, oh, abandoning their careers or whatever, or, for some reason having fear of success, because, they feel like something gonna happen to their child or something. If they do anything to empower themselves, something's gonna happen to somebody that they love. And it's like that's totally ridiculous. You know what I mean? So that would be considered to be a subconscious blockage that you have to deal with. And I also believe that liminal spaces are somewhat connected to our need to do shadow work. I think that is a time, like if nothing is happening, if literally nothing is happening, and that nothing that's not happening is to your detriment, that is when it's like, okay, you have to do shadow work. You may think that you're doing shadow work already, or maybe you are doing it, but maybe you're not going deep enough. Maybe you're not addressing everything, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe it's just not organized enough, you know what I'm saying? So, this is something that I think that people need to look at, uh and to realize that. And then I do believe that there are invasions of your liminal spaces, especially if you've created it, because some of you guys have actually created these spaces for you to be in where you've made all of your plans, right? But some of those spaces were created by your adversaries. Okay, now what the adversary does is they are finding those liminal spaces and they are monitoring you, which is again weird. But and so you have to say that's your mind. That's your mind. And it's sad. It really is sad that especially when it comes to the online spiritual community, that there's people out there doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like they're literally they're using their spiritual gifts to hurt people. They want to get in your head, and they want to monitor you, and they're watching you. They're watching everything that you're doing. So that's one of those other spaces where they have to be kicked out of. Your adversaries have to be kicked out of that liminal space, basically, is what I'm saying, which is kind of the same thing. Even though it was a scary movie, when you looked at The Shining, when they showed those two twins in the hallway, instead of being able to walk past them, they were basically blocking the hallway, and they were just like standing there. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's kind of the same thing. That's how your enemies, that's how your adversaries are standing there in your liminal space. Even when you look up liminal spaces, the way it has been, and it is something that um it does carry on an eerie perspective. And so whenever you're picking up on that, like, or if you have deja vu, or if you feel like that fear or whatever, it's really important for you to go ahead and face it. You know what I'm saying? And for you to actually look at it, because and I think that that's where our divination cards are useful, because it's been shaded out to where and I'm not sure what that is about. Like, honestly, it has gotten so bad. It's like an epidemic of people that just do that. I think it's weird. But you can look at your liminal space, any of them, and say, well, damn, why is this happening? Or why haven't this happened? And you'll be able to look at the cards, and you can see what's standing in front of it. And it does not hurt the people, right? Like, if you have an adversary that's standing in front of it, now if you have an attitude to where, again, your child is that's so weird to me. um but sometimes, like I said, the adversary can hide behind your loved ones, is what they do. Because honestly, there are people, people can have haters, there are people that are against them, in their family or whatever. But I think that you really have to really look at that, and it has to be trusted, because there's some people that's literally their game. That's it, it ain't okay. So you may have issues with your mother. Your mother may have made mistakes, but that doesn't mean that your mother is standing in your way. That doesn't mean that she's standing in your way, right? Not all the time. That's not the case all of the time. So you have to really deal with somebody that's trusted, because everybody's, and now there are some cases where that is the case. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. Okay. Um, some of the cases that I am dealing with spiritually right now is where the parents sacrificed the child. Does parents just have the right to sacrifice the life of their child? No. That's when divine intervention comes in. Okay. So a lot of people, they take issue with that, but I mean, it is what it is. If you are someone that to where you may have karmic parents, or either something happened to where maybe the parent is going through mental illness, or either some kind of spiritual possession, and they have decided, I don't like my child, so I'm just gonna toss them out, which in my opinion is wrong, because you brought that child into this world, so you need to look at yourself. If you feel that way, if you feel that way about your own child, you need to look at yourself, like what's going on with you, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's manifesting through your child. So I feel like I feel like a relationship between a mother and a child, or either a father or a child, is not meant to be broken like that. But unfortunately, we see that happening a lot, and it's just crazy. Like, but it shouldn't be that way. Um, so, but in those situations, there's typically something that parent is fighting, that's not going to let them do that. And it's not always the child. Call it God, call it an agent of God, which is like a guardian angel that's been sent to guard and guide that child, through life or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, um, and and I believe in that, and I have faith in that, because I believe that we all have the right, every single person on this earth has the right to manifest what heals us, what makes us fit, what would you need to make yourself better, and I think it's better that way, because if any psychic medium that is worth their salt will tell you, like for me, I pick up on a lot of inconsolable spirits, and these are people that have passed through earth. Earth is factually supposed to be a physical reality. It's supposed to be, that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like yesterday morning when my tooth was hurting, like that's any if you lose sight, if you ever lose sight of the fact that you live on planet Earth, and that this is all, it's not all about the physical earth reality, like, but it is a physical reality. Your any kind of pain that you have, break a bone, cut yourself, is going to remind you that you live in a physical reality, because that pain is going to be very real. Okay. So let's not forget. Okay. So and to me, it's nothing wrong with that. I see a lot of people, and they'll say, well, the demiurge created this reality that you're stuck in, and so maybe I'm thinking of it. I'm not sure what they mean, but for me, I don't take issue with Earth's physical reality. And so sometimes when I hear people speaking about spirituality, and they're speaking about the physical as if it's a problem, for me, I don't like that. And so that's what I was going to talk about last night, actually, before and I don't even feel comfortable with discussing it right now. I'm not in a headspace where I can discuss that, but I will tell you guys that something that I saw that I truly agree with is the difference between Satanism and Luciferianism. Okay. Um, so Satanism is an embracing of the physical reality and pleasure, right? And so that aspect of it is seen as sin for you to want to experience physical pleasures. But for me, I think that sometimes people can take that way too far, and they're negating too far away from the physical reality. And then this is what possibly could be creating afflictions, health problems. You know what I mean? So, and so I'll talk about that later though. And then the comparison with Luciferianism is to where it's pretty much Lucifer being the morning star, and Luciferians believing that, and I had the analogy in my head last night, but I kind of forgot it. But basically, oh, I forgot what was said about that, y'all. I forgot what was said about that, but it was like the perfect analogy that the person was making. It was like a really good analogy that they were making as far as like how to describe Luciferians. And so, anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I hope that y'all enjoyed the discussion about the liminal spaces. Make sure that y'all hit that thumbs up if you don't mind. I appreciate the thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay. All right. Blessings to y'all. Bye bye.